pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th, 2020?
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve minutes of October 21st, 2020?
I so move.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve appropriations ordinance number 43?
So move.
For a second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Declare the public input session open for any items not on the agenda. Anything on the computer? Okay, I'll ask the bench if there's anything they have.
No.
Okay, declare the public input session closed. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Call on Tim Meyer for the BPU report.
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners.
Morning, Tim.
Just to give you an update on a few projects we're working on. We'd actually scheduled to take, or at the JM 35 kV substation, take the east end of that bus out of service this week. We're going to install 2 new feeds to John Mansville for their expansion, and we need to tie those into the existing bus. And so we have to kill kind of the east end and then the west end. Given the weather conditions and the fact that we're going to have to take 3 12 kV circuits out, one that serves Galva, one that serves our industry on West First, East First, and then one that's kind of serves the area out by the interstate. We need to take those 3 circuits out. We're going to postpone it for a week. So hopefully we'll have better weather next week. We'll do the east half hopefully next week and the west half the following week. So continue to make some progress out there. I'm kind of looking forward to getting that wrapped up. The electric underground crew, they're installing conduit in the Eastmore addition. Again, we're converting the overhead to underground in that area. Really 2 primary reasons. It's a blind alley, so we can't put trucks on the equipment that's in the alley or in the back. And then also, that's the last 5 kV circuit that we have in our system. We've converted all the other ones to 12 kV, 12,000 volts. And we'll be able to get rid of 2, we call them a unit substation. They're just small substations that are kind of out in the system that convert 12 kV to 5 kV. Years ago, McPherson was all 5 kV, and over time, everybody's gotten rid of 5 kV and gone to 12 kV distribution. It's more efficient, and so we're trying to do that as well, kind of update our equipment. Those unit subs were installed in the 60s, so we're trying to get rid of those. At the Mohawk substation, work continues to go on there. Almost all the foundation concrete work's done. I think we have 2 transformer pads left. All the breaker pads are done. All the piers are poured. They're in the process now of burying ground grid. Essentially, it's a 4-aught. We don't use copper anymore. It's actually steel with copper clad on it. Costs about the same, but if somebody decides to come get some, it's not worth anything at the salvage yard. So we've kind of had to change what we install. But there literally is a grid out there. I don't know the exact centers, probably 50 foot or less. And really what it's for is when you have a fault, it distributes that energy so a person doesn't get electrocuted, essentially. So
Good.
they're working on that. Once they do that, we'll start installing the control, underground conduit, and duct bank. And hopefully we'll get that done before the end of winter, before winter starts. And then most of the equipment above grade will start showing up after the first of the year. And BPU crews are going to do all that work. So we'll install the steel, put up the bus, do all the control work. We're actually working inside the building right now. It's sheetrocked and kind of finishing out the electrical. We'll have some work to do there. The breaker panels are supposed to show up shortly after the first of the year. So continue to progress there. Again, that substation, I would say earliest won't come online till the end of next year. We hope to start the transmission line work on that particular project after the first of the year as well. We cannot get it out during the summertime, and so plans are to start that next spring, and maybe a little bit late winter, so see how that goes. We have been doing some more transmission line work ourselves, replacing some existing poles between the refinery substation and one of our ties with Westar. And I've talked about this project before. We've done it kind of in phases. We had 5 structures left to replace. We got 2 done last week. We have 3 left, and they're actually north of K61. That's where we'll be working at. 2 of the holes are dug, or 2 structures, they're dug, and all the poles are dug out there. Now we just need good weather. Late last week, it was a little bit too windy, and we won't do anything when it's like this. So while we need the moisture, it will present some challenges for us getting out in the bean field. So, but that's moving along nicely. Once we have 1 3-pole structure left right by the substation. Once we're done with that, all the poles from plant 2 all the way out to our east tie have been upgraded to steel. So I think that's a good enhancement. Again, when you have an issue on the transmission system, it affects the whole community, as opposed if it's a distribution feeder. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to update these. Plus, they were installed in the 70s, so they've been out there quite a while. On the water line, we did get the 2 hydrants installed on First Street in front of the high school. We got that work done last week. They may have a little bit of cleanup left to do. And we're still trying to get to Simpson Street to replace that 2-inch cast iron line from Lakeside Drive over to Harlem. So hopefully we'll get there sometime in November. We're trying to do that with our own crews. It's a small enough line. We should be able to directionally drill it ourselves and actually do all the work. So hopefully we'll get back there. Just talked about it for a while. Things just keep popping up and running into issues in other locations, so we've been focusing on that. That's all I've got this morning. I don't know if you gentlemen have any questions.
Any
about
questions?
anything, or?
I don't have any,
No.
no, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for the
Appreciate the update.
Yeah. Okay, next item, just a brief comment on the Mayor's Cup due to COVID-19. We will not be playing the Mayor's Cup in the beginning of November at the Roundhouse. We will play the women's game tonight at 6 o'clock at Central Christian College. And I'm not sure that was set up to be on the radio. And then the men's game will be played January 8th at 8 o'clock. They have a league rule that doesn't allow them to play this year in January, I'm assuming due to COVID. So we will play it in January, 2 different dates. Our plan is to return to the Roundhouse next year. So we will still have the CBB grant for officiating, but it will be divided up into 2 things. So give you the update there. The next thing is COVID-19. I want to go ahead and to read a couple of things to you, and then we're going to discuss an ordinance and go from there. The Friday came out, we had 18 new cases. Only 1 was asymptomatic. Unknown cases, unknown exposure was 7, so that means 11 of them came about by known exposure somewhere. Cases of 60 years old and above were 7 of the 18. 50 to 59, we only had 1 new case. 40 to 49, we had 4. 30 to 39, we had 2 new cases. 18 to 29, we had 4. Under 18, which is a good sign for the school district, there were 0. There were 3 new cases for females and 6 for males. That's only 9, so I don't know what the other gender got 9. I'm only joking on that. I don't know why that doesn't add up to 18. So with that, I do want to put up the Harvard piece. And because we've had a lot of cases lately, we have been in the red the last 2 days. We're right at 30. The threshold is 25, so that is not doing good. If you put up the 60-day piece that Mike Wagner does. You will see on our piece there, we're looking better than everybody, but we joined the competition on those last 2 days of being in red. But the other thing to look at there is so many people are in the red, and if you looked at the overall Kansas map for the Harvard deal, the western 2/3 of Kansas, most of the counties are red there. I gave the doctors an open invitation to submit anything that they wanted to submit for this meeting. And Dr. Lichty had sent me an email, so he is in favor of masks. He's been here before, but he didn't send me an email, but I do want to acknowledge him. But I am going to read all 4 doctors. And the first one, and pretty much these were as they were received. First one's from Tyler Hughes. I am actually out of town on Monday and cannot be there in person, but I would definitely support such a ordinance. My reasons. As mentioned in my previous email, which you posted on city information site, masks remain a part of the only known way to slow the spread of the disease. Kansas is experiencing a rising number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in recent weeks. The new theory of herd immunity does not have the support of the majority of true experts in the field of infectious disease and carries potential for great harm if incorrect. Finally, the ordinance should be common sense in that masks are not required for outdoor activities in which there is adequate space to avoid contamination. I have not seen data stating that outdoors with separation has significant risk. Another way to examine the issue of where and when would be to look at CDC guidelines on what situations constitute close contact being our real enemy. I would not support mandates within one's own home or car when alone or with a member of one's limited social circle. As I've said before, I do not consider this a liberty issue restraining one's personal freedom, but a public health policy agreed upon by the majority of the city's elected officials representing the voters of the city for the purpose of public safety, just like speed limits and hygiene ordinances. Good luck. Whichever way the vote goes, I feel it is important that the city have a public stance that mask wearing is crucial to the safety of those we know and love in a time when uncertainty is only the certain aspect of life. Tyler Hughes, MD. The second one that I received was from Sheila Gorman, who has spoke here a number of times. In her letter, her email says, I am grateful for the opportunity to give input free of the burden of representing the medical staff or the health department accurately. Please read this thoroughly through that lens. The mask ordinance is a no-brainer. Widespread community utilization of face coverings in public decreases incidence of coronavirus infections in the community and seems to decrease severity of infections in those who do become infected in spite of these precautions. There is no risk and minimal cost to individuals to implement mask usage. There is great and increasing need for utilization of all available tools to slow this virus because, one, community cases are increasing, impacting individuals and quarantining their contacts, which is inconvenient in all cases and catastrophic in some. Two, our community members have less and less assurance that they have availability to needed resources, such as hospital beds, referral to higher care due to COVID-19, where here and in the surrounding area. Though you accurately said that we can't control what surrounding areas do, it's also true that our own activity warrants action, and we're not doing our part. Third, our frail and elderly are sequestered away and are in some cases dying of loneliness. Continued excess infections in the community are putting them at even increased risk from what is unavoidable. Our schools are battling against high community numbers to stay in face-to-face mode, which is so much important for the kids. Part of the gating criteria for school opening is community involvement of COVID-19, and it's getting harder and harder to justify face-to-face education that our kids deserve when our community COVID numbers are blowing up. Why an ordinance? Because to not have one or to let one expire lends legitimacy to the notion that mask usage is optional right now. That is unimportant, because the expectation in the city should be that people wear a mask in public, because there are citizens of the city who opt not to wear a mask despite the public health necessity, and the fragile among us need protected for their poor choices. The ordinance needs to be in effect until the need is gone. This will likely be at least several months from now, and when a safe and effective vaccine has been administered to all who are willing to get it, there is no reason for a medical or public health standpoint to expect anything else. So stating an end date for the ordinance is ill-advised. I'll say this about the herd immunity idea. It's cruel. It's selfish. The idea is that the fragile are warehoused away while those less at risk go on with their lives with plans to get infected, whether it be the best they can, accepting that a higher proportion of the population will get sick, need medical care, die than would be expected to occur if we were to social distance and wear masks and quarantine when indicated. This dictates that the fragile among us have no right to a public life that is as safe as we can reasonably make it, and that our medical system will intentionally be strained more than is necessary. As part of the medical system, I object. I don't want our medical staff in hospitals to be practicing outside their training and making do with what we have when we can't provide the medical care that our community could otherwise reasonably expect. Do you know how distressing this is to medical staff? And it's already happening, and for what? So that young and healthy don't have to wear a mask and can go wherever they want without restrictions. The herd immunity idea is a strategy for times of desperation when we have no other options. We are a few months away from a vaccine. Now is not the time to intentionally concede defeat. We may yet come to that, but we would be wrong as a society to not take all reasonable precautions against coronavirus until that time. Wearing masks is the least we can ask people to do. Please ask them to do it with a mask ordinance. Respectfully, Sheila Gorman, MD. The next one is from Trenton J. Van Eaton, and he writes, Mayor Brown and City Commissioners of McPherson, Dr. Gorman recently indicated to me that you were interested in any statements from local physicians with regard to the matter of reinstituting the mask ordinance in the city of McPherson. I thank you and the commissioners for taking the time to reach out and solicit opinions from local providers before making this decision. That demonstrates to me that you are considering all sides of this issue and not just reacting to the recent local increase in cases. No matter what you decide, the fact that you are weighing the benefits and consequences of your decision is to be commended, and I greatly respect that. Because McPherson is such a small community, I am sure most of you already have an idea that my views on how we have handled this pandemic on a national, state, and local level differ greatly from some of my colleagues. I believe when we look back on this after it is over, we will realize that the most harmful effects of this pandemic will be from unintended consequences that arose from measures we took to combat a virus which 99% of those infected do survive. We have caused great harm to our economy through shutdowns and restrictions. It will likely take years to come back economically to the place where we were before the pandemic, and sadly many small businesses in our great nation are now gone, never to return. Our children have missed out on months of school and now have to go through their lives fearful that if they themselves or a person they are interacting with remove a face covering to exchange a simple smile, they would contract a terrible virus that could strike them down, despite the fact that the evidence shows that the common influenza virus, which we deal with every year, is a statistically far greater risk to their life. I have no doubt that the anxiety that children are now experiencing, as well as the loss of opportunity to develop nonverbal communication skills due to face coverings, are going to affect our society for many years to come in ways we cannot possibly anticipate. I could possibly understand some stringent mask mandates if there was an overwhelming amount of evidence to support the benefits of universal masking outweigh the risks. For every study that supports it, I can find one that disproves its effectiveness if it hasn't already vanished from the internet, because it goes against the prevailing assumption that masks are going to save us all. This virus has been with us less than a year now. Most of the evidence with regard to the efficacy of social distancing, masking, medications, and even vaccines is case study, the weakest kind of evidence in science. That does not mean we discount case study. It is all we have to go on at the present time. Therefore, we have to try things, see what happens, and then decide if the measure does more benefit than harm. With a medication, this is easy. Administer the drug to a group of patients and see if they receive a benefit, and note if there are unforeseen side effects that outweigh the benefits of the drug. With interventions such as masking, this is more difficult because the adverse effects take longer to manifest themselves and are more subtle and difficult to recognize. Many will argue that masks cannot possibly be causing any harm, but as a member of this community and a physician who sees patients young and old, I can tell you that masks do have undesirable effects, and I see them every day. Humans are a social creature, right down to our very core. We interact together each day in everything we do, and we use many ways to communicate verbally and non-verbally during these interactions. Masks obscure many of the nonverbal cues: a smile, a frown, a look of surprise, or wrinkling of a nose are just a few of the hundreds of ways we use expressions to communicate. I have visited with several speech pathologists regarding the importance of seeing how the mouth and the tongue are shaped and move during speech. The visual cues that children innately use when they are first forming words and speech patterns by imitating others are vital to their verbal development. Kindergarten teachers, language teachers, and speech pathologists understand this and therefore have used clear masks when working with their students or patients, but these are short encounters, and with universal masking, the other 8 or 9 hours of the day spent interacting with other children are not visibly, that's what it says, not visibly, these important, are not visible for these important nonverbal cues. From an economical perspective, universal masking requirements are also harmful to local businesses. As local government officials, I am sure you are very concerned about this fact. Local bars and restaurants are already reeling financially from months of being shut down. Now they are saddled with restrictions on a number of patrons they can allow in their place of business and other meaningless and expensive government mandates. Mask requirements discourage many people from patronizing these establishments. It is simply easier to stay at home. That is exactly what people are doing. Does it really make sense to you to require someone to wear a mask when they enter a restaurant or otherwise move about, but then remove it when they sit down at the table to eat? Do we really want to look like California, where they want you to take a mask down, to take a bite, then put it back up to chew and swallow? Government mandates such as this seem to defy all aspects of common sense, and people find such micromanagement of personal behavior from the government extremely off-putting and condescending. If a local business feels that their customers are better served by requiring masks, then I can respect that. But I feel that this is a decision best left up to the individual business owners and not the local, state, or federal government. I truly do appreciate the fact that you have asked for statements from local health professionals to consider as you make these difficult decisions. That fact in and of itself tells me this community is in good hands with respect to leadership from their local government officials. I hope that if nothing else, I have brought to light some things to think about as we continue to try to go about our lives during this pandemic. Pandemics get one shot at us. Our immune systems are remarkably able to adapt to new pathogens, and this too will eventually become less and less of a threat to our health. It is time for us to heal as a community and as a nation, and to ensure that we don't continue to cause more harm trying to fight the virus than is caused by the disease itself. Trenton J. Van Eaton, concerned parent, community member, and physician. Did I get 4? I think I did.
I think Dr. Thomas.
Huh?
You got
Dr. Thomas wrote one.
You got,
Where'd I didn't bring.
you got Hughes left.
No, I did, Hughes.
He did use.
Okay,
I didn't
that's
bring-
right, yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't bring Dr. Thomas.
All right,
You made
Huh?
you want me to pull it
You-
up on my,
Yeah, good. Will you pull it up and read it? I'm tired of reading. And I try to edit on the fly, which sometimes wasn't very good. I know what I did with Dr. Thomas.
I'll read it.
Never mind, I got it.
He's
I got
Yeah,
it.
he's got it, it's not very
No, I
long.
don't.
It's a short one.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to be there personally to say these things. I would ask you to carry these thoughts to your fellow commissioners. Time and the flare in cases dictate realities for those who treat patients and are protecting loved ones. The strategy to wait for COVID caseloads to worsen before taking the step of mandating masks runs the risk of letting local control getting so bad that we overwhelm our ability to treat patients. Not just COVID patients. If you or I come in with a heart attack, there have been times recently there were no places that would take the transfer. I am all for assuming the best about people until the facts dictate I can't. We had a culture of wearing masks, but when the mandate was dropped, that surprisingly changed. We have the power to help us get that back. Apparently, what you do does make a difference, even if it is not enforced. We are all just trying to do the right thing. There is no lack of opinions. Common sense would dictate that if masks have a chance of working, we should do something so simple. It is likely, in my medical opinion, that if we wore masks, socially distanced, and did basic hygiene, we would work, worship, and socialize without shutting down. It is also my medical opinion that we need you to mandate masks until the pandemic is over in order to regain the culture of accepting masks. Thank you for your service. Gregory M. Thomas, M.D. Okay, those are the four. I'm going to talk too much. I'm going to drop my mask for a minute. I did have a meeting on Saturday morning with a doctor in emergency department of Wesley Medical Center. They, as you may have seen on the news, are being overwhelmed with people coming from Oklahoma and Texas, and that is one of the reasons why we're not getting people there. But Northwest Oklahoma has experienced a great surge in the virus, and they have nowhere to go. Wichita is one of the closer places to try to come. He said that he saw more people on Friday over 60 with a severe health situation from coronavirus than he's seen all of the previous months together. So we are definitely in the middle of community spread, community surge. It's all around us, and it finally got to us, as you saw earlier, with the 2 days in the red. I still believe in the Kick COVID campaign, but we need to have something more to be able to bring this back down, and maybe it will last longer than we would like. And so I would just like to stress briefly, Commissioner Weens brought a motion last time. It died for the second. I would like to give him the privilege of bringing a motion again. But before we do that, I would like to have a discussion on a date or no ending date. So I'll call on Commissioner Mell, who may have supported that idea, but didn't bring it up last meeting.
I did support Larry's idea, but I didn't like the ending date on it, and I'm glad you brought that up this morning. I'd like to leave that ending date open-ended, simply because COVID is open-ended. It has no starting or stopping date, and I don't want to look at orange and red and yellow and all that and change it every time something different comes up. So I'd like to leave it open-ended to a date at the discretion of the commission as to a safe and well-informed consensus, including that of medical associates in McPherson. So we have some idea of when it is safe to stop the mandate. But if we can leave it open-ended, and I like the idea very much of incorporating the facets of the Kick COVID campaign into an ordinance. I think that needs to be there. That's a good campaign, and we need to keep that going as well. The only thing I would change is an open-ending date.
Commissioner Weeds?
I agree with what Commissioner Mel is expressing. The Kick COVID campaign is something that was brought up. It's been around now for a week, a little over maybe, and we're seeing some things that are being addressed, and there is some positive things coming out of that. And I like the idea of the Kick COVID campaign and no end date on the ordinance.
Okay. Any other comments you would like to make?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead and make a motion.
I move that we reinstall the mask mandate that was dropped September 9. It expired September 9, I should say. There's a couple of changes that have been made to it, and one of them is recently launched the Kick COVID campaign to encourage various health and safety measures with hopes of limiting the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic in McPherson. That's been added to it, and down, I think that was about the only thing other than the end date. There is no end date to that, and I would ask that this go into effect on the 28th of October. That's Wednesday, if I remember right.
And that's with the $10.
$10.
Yes, with the $10 fine, yes.
Okay.
At midnight on October 28th.
Okay, so that would mean that there would be the rest of today and tomorrow, and then at 12:01 on the 28th, it will go into effect.
That's correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I'd like to say on discussion that, there's a lot of pros and cons, and I think we read, the mayor has read some of those. And for maybe everyone that's asking to wear a mask, there's one that says don't wear a mask, masks are no good, and so on. But my motion is that we have to start somewhere, and other than getting a vaccine and going through that step, this is what we can do to start.
I have been an advocate of the people in the community, even though I get both sides. And no matter what we do, I'll get a landslide from the other side. But I brought forward the campaign because in the end, we have to come together. The other viewpoint is not the opposition. It's not the enemy. Bringing this down to a respectable place that we can deal with is what we have to do. Coronavirus is the opponent here, not each other. And so we have to help each other regardless of what you believe. And if we can do that, we can get to where we want to go. And so I'm for the campaign. I believe in the people that will ultimately do this. And I am going to say that we may need a little bit more push in order to get that moving forward. And so for those of you that think I have never looked at science, I don't know what you think I do by putting up scientific data every week. The other thing, in the end of September, I think it was September 28th, I jokingly said a week ago, maybe we ought to check our sewage. And little did I know that on September 28th, the state checked our sewage. And that report comes back lightly positive in any category in there that is 0 automatically gets half of the minimum amount. So lightly positive is not much of all. Even though we're in the red, we're not very far. Let's lick this thing before we're like some of the other counties around us that got to 60 to 80 cases per 100,000. We're right at 30. We're on the edge of the red. Let's get it beat back. I don't mind the no date. Maybe we are going to have to wait longer than we would like, but we have to turn this down. I was disappointed in meeting with the doctor at the emergency department of Wesley of how many patients are taken from out of state, and I said to him, how can you do that? He said, I'm not management. How can you do that when you want to take a couple of our cases that needed specialty care? And you take Oklahoma, Texas, and we do know that this surge started to happen in Oklahoma, Colorado, and Nebraska before it came to us. So we're not immune to it, but herd immunity, I still will say, even though some of you feel like I'm a murderer for not having a mask ordinance, I feel bad every time somebody dies here. I've said many times, one death was too much. And the rest of the commissioners would agree with me. And we don't want any more. I would hope that we don't go beyond 6, but we might. There are a number of these cases that have been over 60 for the last couple of weeks. And you never know. You know, it was said by the health department that last week a number of the cases came from weddings and funerals. Some of the funerals and most of the weddings were open air. I don't think it happened in the open air. It happened when you got together to get the thing together to push it out to the open air. So it is. The difference between this and flu is, one, the flu has a vaccine. And some of us has already taken our shot. The other thing is, this is more contagious. When I met the emergency department doctor on Saturday, he said they're starting to see some people that are super spreaders, and other people that, even if they have a slight asymptomatic case, are not spreaders. And those people that are super spreaders seem to get it worse, and they pass it along quickly. So we need to do everything we can. So with that, I'd like to ask for a vote on this ordinance with no ending date. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous that we will have that ordinance. Now, it does define in the ordinance what a cloth mask or a face covering is, made of a variety of synthetic and natural fibers, including cotton, silk, or linen. Ideally, a mask or other face coverings have 2 or more layers, so I hope that guides you a little bit. I think that persons in the ordinance, all persons in the city of McPherson shall cover their mouth and noses with a mask or other face coverings when they are in the following situations: inside an indoor public space where distancing of 6 feet at all times is not possible. And I want to point out that most small businesses, you can probably accomplish that, and you still need to do business in McPherson. If you are fearful to do that, call in your order. Have it delivered, or you can pick it up. They will gladly try to accommodate you under the COVID circumstance when you are in line and waiting to enter any indoor public space. Now, both those 2 things are a problem when you get to a large grocery store or a large box that sells all kinds of things, including groceries. And it doesn't do any good to put your mask on and then get inside and take it off and wander the aisles where you're right there with each other all the time. And we need those types of businesses to help us control the spread, community spread in McPherson. Third, obtaining services from healthcare sectors, hospitals, pharmacy, medical clinic, laboratory, physician and dental offices, vet clinics, blood banks. Every one of those falls into a category where you probably have had the requirement of a mask already. It's nothing new. Fourth, waiting for or riding public transportation. So if you're in transportation. And the fifth thing was, outdoor and public areas and unable to maintain 6 feet. So really this is why I wanted it to tie into the COVID, Kick COVID campaign, is there is a choice. In the poster say, you choose. Can you maintain social distance? Or do you have to wear a mask? I mean, that seems like it'd be an easy thing to decide. The other thing is that there are 11 exceptions. The first one is persons ages 5 and under. Children aged 2 years and under in particular should not wear a face covering because the risk of suffocation, and as Dr. Van Eaton said, they're learning to talk and communicate, so they have open ability to do that. And they should have all that same ability with their adults in their family at home. Persons with a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability prevents wearing a mask covering. This includes persons with medical conditions for whom a mask wearing a face covering would obstruct breathing, or who are unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove a face covering without assistance. So we're trying to address those people, as that's an exception to wearing the mask, and I hope who's ever with those people is helping them to be social distance. Persons who are hearing impaired, who are communicating with a person who is hearing impaired, where the ability to see the mouth is essential for communication. That may be a young child, it may be an older adult. And so that exemption applies. Persons for whom wearing a face covering would create a risk to the person related to their work as determined by local, state, federal regulators or workplace safety guidelines. So if it's hazardous to the job that you are doing, then you don't wear it. Persons who are obtaining a service involving nose and face or temporary removal, obviously, and probably dental people. If you've been to the dentist, I finally I scheduled for a year, and then I had to postpone 6 months. It was good for me, bad for the dentist. I sort of like that because everything came out all right. But anyway, when you have those things, you can't expect the dentist to work on you and not take the mask off. Persons who are seated at a restaurant, other establishments that offer food and beverages while they are eating and drinking, provided they are 6 feet of distance between individuals, not including individuals who reside together or are seated together. So if you're there with your family or significant other, you can have the mask off while you're eating. Athletes who are engaged in organized sports, and some teams, as we've seen in high school athletics and whatever, are wearing a mask on the sideline, others are not. And but we do push that. We are so happy that our high school has completed an entire season, and they are starting football sub-state. The girls have won sub-state at Circle. In volleyball, we have been able to get through this time, and so we need to keep on going. persons engaged in an activity that a professional or recreational association, regulatory entity, medical association, or other public health ordinance has determined cannot be safely conducted. We don't wear the mask. Persons engaged in court-related proceedings held or managed by the Kansas judiciary. That would not require a mask. And 11, persons engaged in religious activities. I won't read that whole thing. But you can do it. You can practice the 6 feet and social distance, and you still can be meeting. And many of our churches have been meeting even before we didn't have a suspension or of the mask thing. Now, any person violating the provisions of section 30-4 of the Code of the City of McPherson shall be guilty of an infraction and shall be fined $10. Court costs shall not be levied. I would expect that we will try to do the best we can on enforcement. This is a very difficult enforcement, but we will do the best we can. Why I wanted to read that is, as Dr. Van Eaton was against universal mask mandate, this is not a universal mask mandate. There is some choice in here, and there are exceptions in here, but we still, if we follow it, can do better as a community. And
I agree.
that's what we want. We want to do better as a community. We want to have as much freedom as we can within the ordinance, and yet we will beat this down. And hopefully we will come to some point where we don't have to worry about this sooner rather than later. But whether it dependent on this just dying down of itself due to some immunities or a vaccine or both, we need to do the best we can so we can keep our schools open, so we can keep our businesses open, and you need to focus on local business, especially we're coming from Halloween to Christmas is a big retail time of the year. Some people, their whole year depends on that 8 weeks. So I am advocating you do everything you can to shop locally regardless of the ordinance and support these people in their livelihood. Okay, with that, I think that I have covered. Anybody either commissioner want to say anything else?
Oh, I just want to make a statement here. I've heard people say, well, it divided the community, it divided the city, it divided divided relationships between your brother-in-law and yourself and grandma and so on, and I appreciate that, and I don't like it any better than anybody else does, but I think bear with us, bear with the health department, and let's work our way through this thing and get that ending date put in there just as quick as we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the building inspection report and try to get that in. And then I am going to ask for a recess so that we can do the 9:30 piece on the study session. And then we will get as much done after that. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
I have the building inspection report for September. I apologize, I'm a little behind. Had some computer glitches that made it hard to get it done, but I got it done. Residential units, which are new construction, are up 7% for the year. Residential additions and remodels are down 13%. Residential others, which is your general maintenance, water heaters, roofing permits, are down 19%. Commercial new are up 70%. Commercial remodels and additions are up 10%. And the total of all permits are down 24%. We're still well down on the cost of construction, but we did make a little ground. we've issued 337 permits this year, as compared to 442 this time in 2019. 409 inspections have been conducted so far this year, as compared to 531 this time last year. Some project updates. Piping Technology is building a new office area. They have the dirt work done and the ground ready to go. They haven't moved much past that. The Edinburgh Manor apartments are all getting remodeled, and they're also building a storm shelter. They've pulled permits and haven't begun work. They said it'd be a couple weeks before they could get in there, but that's what's going on there. And then John Mansville has done 2 concrete pours for kind of the smaller outbuildings, and are getting ready to do the bigger areas. They said sometime this week. We'll see with the weather what happens there, but they're getting close to doing a lot of concrete out there. And then Aware Technologies building it's up. They're basically on the inside now doing rough ends. There was still a little bit of sheeting on the outside, but other than that, it's mostly stuff on the inside. And then that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
What was that?
Thank you,
Oh,
Ryan.
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, somebody want to look for Mary Steffes out there, but in the meantime, I'll call for, fire department.
She was there, I think.
Yeah, I saw her.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A few items for you this morning. First item, paid call firefighter Dylan Neubauer submitted his resignation. He's a firefighter with Sedgwick County, and he's been participating with 2 departments, and it proved very difficult. Firefighter Neubauer is a talented individual, and we appreciate the time he's dedicated to the city. And requesting a motion to accept his resignation.
I'll move to accept the resignation of Dylan Neubauer, paid call firefighter, effective today, October 26, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
With that, we interviewed several candidates for paid call as well. Clayton Everhart interviewed successfully for the position of paid call firefighter. We feel that Mr. Everhart would be a valuable addition to the paid call ranks, and we request a motion to hire Clayton Everhart as a paid call firefighter effective November 16th, 2020.
I'll move to approve making a conditional job offer to Clayton Everhart for the position of paid call firefighter pending successful pre-employment requirements effective November 16th, 2020.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Last item we have, we received the renewal notice for the Target Solutions, which is the fire department's training software platform. This software is used to teach continuing education, track training for ISO, and maintain the needed professional licenses. The renewal start date will be July 1st, 2020. We missed that, and this got lost in the COVID mess. So we're trying to get it renewed and caught up with this. I request a motion for approval to renew Target Solutions training software agreement for the amount not to exceed $3,545.90.
I'll move to approve payment to Target Solutions Learning LLC for renewal fire department training software for the amount not to exceed $3,545.90.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll call on Assistant Chief to do the job offer quickly.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I just have one thing. I'd like to make an approval, making a conditional job offer to Christina May for the position of school crossing guard pending successful pre-employment requirements, effective November 2nd, 2020.
I'd like to move making conditional job offer to Christina May for the position of crossing guard, school crossing guard pending successful pre-employment requirements effective November 2, 2020.
I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move to recess the city commission meeting to go into study sessions. Is there a second?
I second it.
All
I'm
those in
sorry.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Here's Jeff Woodward.
Morning. The first item I have for you today is our CDBG reimbursement number 4. We've turned in our 4th request and received payment of CDBG funds in the amount of $45,000. No action necessary, just wanted to keep you up to date on the status of the CDBG grant. The only other thing I have this morning is an update on the projects we have ongoing at this time. First is a hard up at Elizabeth Street reconstruction project. We completed the final, the walkthrough last week. We've given the final punch list to the contractor. There are no street closures associated with this project. Next is an update on the Halls area drainage project. There's no changes here. We're down to one final item on the punch list, and that is touch up of the paint on some of the handrails are still needed. No street closures are associated with this project. Next is an update on the Chestnut Street Improvement Project. No work on this project last week. The final walkthrough is scheduled for this Thursday. And I'd like to give you an update on the reconstruction of the 800 block of Wheeler. This is being done by the street department crew. The street department has Wheeler Street closed between First and Anna. Pavement removals and excavation is complete, and the rock base is about 50% complete, so we're moving right along on that one. Finally, I'd like to remind everyone that the weekly construction updates, road closures and detours, planned road closures and planned detours are available on the city's website at www.mcpcity.com. That's all I have unless there are any questions.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Did you have
You wanna
some?
bring that other
Bring
item
the
back?
6.4,
Oh, Louis,
Louis Service,
yeah.
back from study session.
My daughter just got into grad school.
The rear main seal and the radiator clutch for the sewer treatment truck from Louis Service Center for a cost not to exceed $2,900.
I move that we approve payment to Louis Service Center in Inman, Kansas for repairs to the sewer truck for an amount not to exceed $2,900.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. Call on Nick Gregory, administrative report.
First item I have for you, last week you guys approved authorizing going forward and signing the contract with Assurance Partners for their consulting fees and service agreement. We received the bill for that, and we need to go ahead and pay for it.
Can't imagine.
The motion, I'm asking to consider a motion to go ahead and approve the expense associated with that for the upcoming year, and that's $16,125. That is broke out amongst all the departments appropriately, and they actually go through a process where they split that out based upon where the costs are associated with that.
Tell Mark it has a 15-day legal waiting period.
Yeah. We pay our bills in 90 days.
Okay. I will move to approve the payment to Assurance Partners LLC for renewal of service agreement and consulting fee associated with the city's property liability insurance for the period October 1, 2020 to October 1, 2021 for an amount not to exceed $16,125 to be divided among the city departments.
I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Rural Housing Incentive District, as you guys may remember, or some of you guys have worked with in the past, is an incentive that's authorized through the state of Kansas that allows us to use ad valorem taxes generated for new development. It allows us to use that to help pay for some of the infrastructure costs associated with those. As you guys may be aware, RHID was approved back in 2014 for Terra Nova property, and it was approved for the entire parcel of property where Terra Nova is at. And they've built it in phases, and at this point there's 2 phases associated with that particular project. There's a potential for a 3rd phase associated with that project, but as part of this request, Richard and I received the request to include the second half of that particular project as part of the RHID of Phase 2, which included two 16-plex apartment complex, the 2 that were added, which would be to the west side of the property there, and also they added a underground storm shelter as well. Associated with that, they did have to do some additional infrastructure and also some flat work associated with that in the parking lots and everything of that nature. We spent a significant amount of time kind of thoroughly reviewing those invoices. It's somewhat of a challenge because the way the RHID is written up is that it allows us to pay for non-vertical pieces that are associated with the project. So things like the building aren't eligible through RHID, but other items are. And so it takes quite some time to kind of go through those and figure out what's eligible and what's not eligible. And at this point, staff is recommending that the following amounts be finalized and be spent on be sent to McPherson County to be added to the role as software eligible cost, or as eligible costs for this particular project. Just so you know, the way RHID works is it starts 15 years after you approve the district. So if it started back in 2014, and we approved it for the entire parcel. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. So any expenses you have up to 15 years to be reimbursed for those particular expenses. So with that starting on March 17, 2014, this will basically add to additional reimbursed costs that are eligible for that project, and it'll go till March 17, 2029, which they'll receive reimbursement back. And the other caveat with that is there are some ad valorem portion of the taxes, which are mostly school district related taxes, the bond and interest, and one other school district tax is not eligible for reimbursement. So what happens is, as they pay their taxes, the county turns around and gives us those funds to pay back as a refund as part of the RHID. Terra Nova was granted $1,585,217.32 an eligible cost by the commission back on March 8th of 2017. That reimbursement balance as of today has been reduced to $1,186,455.
Yeah, 1 million.
1 million, I'm sorry, 1,186,000. So that means that we've paid down the difference between the 1,000,508 and the 1,186,000. So therefore, today's eligible reimbursement balance for the remainder of that, if you include what's being added today, equates to $2,045,496.61. That gives them 9 years remaining on their RHID district. And just to bring up a point, that brings the likelihood of recouping all of those funds based upon where we see the taxes coming in. It's probably going to be slim that they'll recoup all of those funds, but what that does do is it adds to the amount that's potentially reimbursable each year. So if collections on the ad valorem taxes stay the same as they are, they'll recoup approximately $900,000. Now, that's assuming the values don't increase from the county level, and that's assuming that that taxes don't go up. So obviously, as taxes go up and as values go up, it could be more than that $900,000 that they recoup.
And they still have room for 15 townhouses, which was the original design, or something else, but the longer they take, the less they are able to recover.
So with that, our recommendation is to go ahead and make the additional amount reimbursable of $859,041.19 eligible, and to go ahead and submit that over to the county after your approval.
Okay, I'd like to move to finalize all allowable RHID costs for Terra Nova Phase 2 Rural Housing Incentive District in amount of $859,041.19.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This year, the McPherson Housing Coalition received $192,353 in grant funding from KDHE. Due to COVID-19, there will be no match required this year, which is a good thing. McPherson Housing Coalition will be allotted $114,000 for rapid rehousing applicants, and $66,500 for homeless prevention applicants. Also another $2,660 for technology and training, and then lastly $9,193 for grant administration. The aggregate of these two reimbursements requests, reimbursement number 1 and number 2, is $15,774.55, which equates to 8% of the total award amount of $192,353. So ESG, just as a reminder, stands for Emergency Solutions Grant. The grant's funded by KDHE and is administered by the City of McPherson for the benefit of the McPherson Housing Coalition to be used for their homeless prevention programs. So with that, we go ahead and make the request that we go ahead and request that reimbursement payment. It will come in the form of a ACH, and we'll turn around and write that check over to the McPherson Housing Coalition to reimburse them.
I'll move to approve payment to McPherson Housing Coalition for ESG grant reimbursement. Request number 1 in the amount of $7,907.14, and reimbursement request number 2 in the amount of $7,867.41, for a total amount of $15,774.55, and authorize the mayor to sign the related documents.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Last week, we reviewed the potential wellness policy for the upcoming 2021 wellness year. And as we reviewed that, we asked that we'd go ahead and bring it this week for your consideration and final approval. And it is here for your consideration to approve. Just as a note, participation in that 2021 wellness program will dictate the discounts and potential wellness days awarded to city employees that decide to participate in the 2021 wellness year.
Yeah, I move that we adopt the 2021 City of McPherson Wellness Policy for 2021 program year of the City of McPherson employees.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You heard earlier during the commission meeting about 2 new hires. The first being Clayton Everhart, the fire department, paid call firefighter. We're requesting that we go ahead and pay him $25 per run drill, which is the standard for paid call firefighters, beginning November 16th, 2020. Also, Christina May, police department crossing guard, starting at $12 per hour, effective November 2nd.
I'll move to approve those wages.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You,
Move the 9.5 fall retreat.
you,
Nope. Okay, did I?
yeah, just get the investment, and then we'll go back to
Okay.
approval of investments.
Okay, there is one CD for $500,000. It's a 12-month CD at 0.11% interest rate, and it will mature on October 22nd of next year.
I
Before
move
there's
we
a
approve.
motion's made, is the state fund lower than this? Okay, make your motion.
I move we accept the
I'll second.
investment.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I'll pay the interest.
Terrible. But we won on the bond side, so not gonna complain.
I can tell you, we've got 8 CDs that are now out for bid, and what I've seen is even less, the responses are less than this.
See, they're all building new banks though.
Banks are sitting on a exorbitant amount of money right now.
Okay,
There's 5 bonds for your consideration. First being Matt's Electric LLC out of Canton, $5,000 electrical bond. Superior Plumbing and Heating Company out of Salina, both the $5,000 plumbing bond, $5,000 mechanical bond. And then Calabrese Heating and Cooling out of Salina, $5,000 mechanical bond and a $5,000 gas fitter bond.
I move we approve the bonds.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go back to Commission Fall Retreat schedule. Do you have anything you want to say?
Now, just a reminder that we are gonna be meeting, for the fall retreat on November 5th. And we will go from approximately 8:30 to 3 o'clock, 3-ish. It could be between 3 and 3:30, depending on how time shakes out. But the plan would be for us to meet at the community building for that first part of that day. And then the afternoon, following the 3:30-ish time frame, we will get on the trolley and we'll actually have a mobile portion of the retreat that we'll go down and look at potential projects, past projects, and a number of other items that will be of interest that we'll sit down and do. That is a public meeting, so that is open to the public. This is just a reminder, and what you have here is a summary of the draft. I'm still working on the final last pieces of a more detailed one that you guys should receive, and that should come out to you this week for your review. And if there's anything else missing from there, once I send that out, please just let me know. I'll make sure I add the Humane Society as well.
Okay, is there any other business? Seeing none on the computer? Okay, I'll move that we adjourn the city commission meeting for October 26, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Go to your computers and get your fan mail.